welcome to Verbal to Visual Video. I'm your host, Doug Neill. In this week's episode, I want to share with you a zero drawing approach to visual note taking. Now, you might think that in order to take visual notes, you have to draw, but I'm here to tell you today that that is not the case. I like to break visual note taking down into 4 distinct components. There's text, layout, color, and imagery. In this no drawing approach to visual note taking, we're going to focus on text and layout alone, and we're going to ignore color and imagery. I'm going to share with you what you can do with just those first 2 components, and then I'm going to show you some examples of how I have used this approach in my own work. So let's start with that first component, text. There are 2 primary ways that you can use text in a visual way while you're taking your notes. The first is by varying the size of your text. The second is by varying the style of your text. By varying the size of the letters that you write, you are adding a component of hierarchy to your notes. That allows you to distinguish between big, important ideas and small details, which is incredibly useful when you come back to look at these notes later and you want to be able to see which of these ideas are the most important. And having even just 2 different sizes of text to work with while you are taking notes helps during the note-taking process itself. Because as you're getting ideas down, you will have this filter going on in your head, determining which of those things that are coming through are big ideas and which are small ideas. And that active interpretation of incoming information is one of the key components to making this visual note-taking thing useful. By varying the style of the words that you write on the page, you get at the tone of an idea. The idea itself could be bold, or it could be rough, or it could have some other almost emotional component to it that you can express via the style of the letters that you write. So by employing multiple styles of text, that allows you to get at the essence of an idea, to express something more qualitative about what you're putting onto the page. And the more consistently you use different styles and sizes of text, the easier it will be for you to look back on those notes and distinguish between the ideas that are laid out there. So those are a couple of ways to use text while you're taking your visual notes. Let's turn next to layout. The thing that you're tapping into when you pay attention to where on the page you put an idea in relation to the other ideas that are already there is your spatial reasoning skills. When you walk around in your day-to-day life, you are using your spatial reasoning skills all of the time. This is the part of your brain that interprets visual information. It tells you which object is on top of another object and which object is behind and how objects are moving around you. That sense is pretty well developed because it's been key to our survival. And when we apply that spatial reasoning to the visual note-taking process, it helps us distinguish how multiple ideas are related to each other. Specifically, we can use this skill to separate ideas, to connect ideas, and to show processes. There are a couple of ways that you can separate ideas on the page. The first is using containers, which are these bounds that you put around a word or a phrase that show that it's separate from any other set of word or phrase that's bounded somewhere else. And just as you can write text in different styles to convey something about the essence of an idea, you can also get these containers down in different styles. And you can decide for yourself what ideas you want to bound inside a rectangle versus a cloud versus something a little more flashy or unique. That allows you to use these containers both to separate ideas from each other, but also to show which ideas are related based on whatever style you use to contain those words. Another often overlooked way to separate ideas is simply white space. It's not uncommon to want to cram in as many ideas as you can within whatever space you have in front of you, whatever material that you're working on. But when you include the right amount of white space in between your ideas, you're doing yourself a huge favor when you come back to look at these notes in the future. It will be so much easier to interpret what's on the page if you've left a bit of space in the right places. To get at those next two components, connecting ideas and showing process, you can use lines and arrows. And yet again, you can use the style of those lines and arrows to reveal the type of connection that you're trying to show. Maybe the connection is a strong one. Maybe it's a bit of a weak one. Or maybe you have to meander a bit to get from one to the next. There are many different ways that ideas can be connected to each other. And by using different styles of lines and arrows, you can get at that type of connection that fits for the two ideas that you are trying to relate to each other. You can also include words alongside those lines and arrows to add another level of detail to that connection that you're showing. That can add a bit more context and clarity related to the connection that you're trying to demonstrate. I think that this no drawing approach to visual note taking can be used in a variety of settings, but I wanted to share two specific applications that I have found to be useful: real-time note taking and figuring out structure. And I'm going to show you examples of each of those from my own experience. Here is an example of some notes that I took in real time while listening to The Fizzle Show, which is a podcast about entrepreneurship and how to create an honest online business, which is precisely what I'm in the throes of right now. That's what I'm trying to build here at Verbal to Visual. In episode 70 of The Fizzle Show, the hosts delved into this question of what's the right amount of prep before launching a thing. The entire hour-long conversation was on that topic. This podcast is very conversational, and often it goes in random and weird, but often funny directions. I like that style of podcast, and I think that this style of visual note-taking goes really well with it, because it allows you to pull out the important ideas from the conversation and show how they are related to each other. So you can show how an idea that comes up at minute 5 relates to an idea that comes up at minute 50, maybe even in a way that the host of the show can't see because they don't have this visual aid in front of them. It's a way to make sense of ideas that are flowing in real time. And the folks at Fizzle liked this sketch enough that when I posted it, they added it at the bottom of the post connected to that podcast. So this is also kind of a cool way to add value to conversations that are already happening out there somewhere on the internet or in real life. In addition to helping you, the visual note taker, you might also be able to help others out there if you choose to share your sketches online. And also, as someone who was not much of a doodler growing up, for me, the constraint of not putting any visuals down helped a lot because I never ran into the problem of getting pulled into an image that I wanted to keep developing. I could only use words and short phrases and connections. And that helped a lot in being able to keep up with the conversation. And I never felt like I was losing track of the big picture of the conversation, which I found to be both really helpful and also gave me a sense of confidence as I was taking these notes. Let's look next at how you can use this approach to figure out the structure of something. Here are some really rough notes that I took while I was thinking about what I want each module of the Verbal to Visual classroom to look like. That classroom is an online learning environment that I'm currently building to teach this skill of visual note-taking, to walk through all of those 4 components and show you how to build your skills and then apply them in specific ways. And I use this approach of visual note-taking to dig into the structure of each of the 9 modules that will make up this course. I decided that I wanted to be able to encapsulate each module in one big picture, a sketch that fits on one page. But I also wanted to be able to do some deep dives into certain aspects of what's in that big picture. And that in conjunction with each of those deep dives will be a set of learning activities that will help you develop the specific skills that I am talking about in those deep dives. I will also have a forum attached to each module so that you, the student, if you decide to enroll in this course, can interact with the other students that are also engaging with the same materials, to ask questions of each other, to show your own work, and to have conversations around the topics that I will be discussing in these instructional materials. And finally, I know that at the end of each module, there's probably going to be a lot of things that I will want to point to, whether it be cool videos related to the topic of that module, maybe some books, other resources, if you want to continue digging deeper into that particular topic. Most of those ideas had been floating around in my head for a while, but it wasn't until I sketched them out in this way that I realized specifically how those ideas were connected to each other. And now that I have this picture, I have a much clearer understanding of not only what each module is going to look like, but also how one module is related to all of the others. It's giving me more confidence in the overall structure of the course before I dig into the nitty-gritty details of building out all of these instructional pieces and learning activities. I have much more confidence in this structure that's on the page than I did in those ideas that were just floating around in my head. I hope that those two examples give you an idea of how you might be able to use this no drawing approach to visual note-taking. I also hope that you experiment with it yourself in your own way and find new applications for this style. So give it a shot with something that you're working on and let me know how it goes. Thank you for watching, and I will talk to you next time. Until then.